In modern manufacturing, companies often create multiple variations of the same product. To do this, we'll utilize the same equipment, but use slightly different lists of set points to create the new product. This is common, and we'll often refer to these lists of set points as recipes or formulas. If you imagine for a second that I work for a company that sells bottles of juice, I'd likely sell different sizes of those bottles based on what the consumer is looking for. When it came time to actually fill the bottles, I'd need to configure my equipment so that it properly handles the different sizes. For my small bottle, I add 250 milliliters of liquid, and I run my conveyor at 20 feet per minute to fill these bottles. Now this would be a formula I'd use for filling these small bottles. If I decided to change which product I was running, I'd need to change those set points by selecting a different formula. For my larger 1 liter bottles, they obviously need to have a different fill level, but I'd also need to change my conveyor speed because the larger bottles would take longer to fill. My name is Dylan Pereira, and in this video from InSource Solutions, the topic I want to discuss is recipe management. In a number of facilities, keeping track of these different formulas can be difficult. I've seen some facilities where these settings are kept on paper. I've seen some facilities where a basic recipe system is put into their HMIs, and I've even seen some where it's up to the operator to remember these settings. All of these systems may work, but there are some common problems we hear. First, when values are entered, is someone manually typing them in? If they are, there's a risk that someone's either going to make a typo or manually change set points because they think they know the best way to run the equipment. Secondly, a lot of solutions are geared toward the operator. But what happens when the QA or R&D department wants to take a look at these recipes? How easy is it for them to do this? And third, if the recipe changes, what happens? Whether it's a paper or electronic system, how do we ensure that updated recipe makes it out to all of the lines? Now that we know some of the problems with traditional approaches, let me talk about one solution that can help make things a little easier for your teams. That solution is from Wonderware and is called Recipe Manager Plus. In the next few minutes, I want you to see how easy it is to use this system, how easy it is to maintain your formulas, and at the end, how easy it might be for you to try this yourself. Now, the first thing I want to do is log in to Recipe Manager Plus. I'm logging in as an operator here, but take a moment and notice how I'm accessing the software. I'm using a web browser, so it's really easy for anyone in my plant to access the system since there isn't any extra software to install. And once I'm logged in, you'll see this operator has access to 2 of my blenders and 2 of my mixers. You can imagine for each blender and each mixer, I'd likely have a couple different lists of set points. If my plant used a paper-based system, it would be up to the operator to make sure he entered the correct formulas into the correct pieces of equipment. This simplifies the process. Here you can see the formulas for the blenders and the mixers that I've entered into our recipe system. For blending, I have a small and large batch, and for mixing, I have a high and low speed formula. For an operator, first logging into the system, they'll see the pieces of equipment that they have access to, as well as the current status of that equipment. Here we can see that Mixer 1 has completed its last batch, so let's send it a new list of set points. At the top of the screen, the user will select to assign a formula, and we'll see a list of formulas pop up. One thing you'll notice is that I mentioned earlier we had 4 different formulas in our system. But right now, the operator is only seeing 2 of them. The system helps me by preventing my operator from running a formula not intended for this piece of equipment. Now, the operator selected the low-speed formula and will have a chance to review the formula to make sure it's correct. And if everything looks good, they can select to download the formula to the equipment. Another nice thing about this is we don't only see the set points, we can also see the previously loaded set points along with current values coming from the field. Now, what if we want to run a batch on our blender, but after selecting the formula, we decide we need to make a quick modification? Maybe we want to make a slightly larger batch. Well, on each line of the formula, we have an option to edit the set point. So now the user can come in and manually modify one of these values. Now you might be asking the question, is this something we really want our operators to do? And frankly, if our goal is to be putting consistent product out the door, we probably don't want every operator being able to make changes like this. One of the nice pieces to this system is that with each of our logins, we can set up different permissions for each user or group. So if we want to lock out the edit button for operators, we'd be able to do that. Now, I talked earlier about the fact that we want one system for all of our users. Here you can see I'm logging in as one of my QA users. And once logged in, they're going to have different access rights than my operator. Here you'll see we now have the options to edit our formulas. When a QA user comes in, they can select the formula, check it out so that they can edit it, make the modifications they need to, and then check the formula back into the system. Now there's 2 nice things about this process. The first is when the user checks out the formula, it prevents others from editing the formula at the same time, but it also puts this formula into a draft state. Once they've made the change, they can check it back in. And finally, the last step would be to have someone come in and approve the formula. Until this is done, the formula can't be ran out on the plant floor. So lastly, when we talk about different roles, I want to log in as a plant manager who maybe wants to take a look at reports of what batches have been ran. You can see here I have options to select either to view by the formula that was run, or by the equipment, or by the specific recipe. What I'm going to do is select to view by formula, and we can see the formulas that I've ran in the last little while. With each, we can see when the formula was ran, which piece of equipment was used, and which operator executed the order. If I want to go deeper, I can even select the details option to see what set points were used, and in this case, that one of them was edited. So a great piece to this system is all of our different user groups are able to use the one same tool without having to install anything. They all have different access rights, so they can only get into the stuff that they need to be working with. And at the end of the day, we have the ability to do some auditing to make sure we are putting out consistent product. Now, the last piece I want to mention is how easy it is to implement this in your facility. First off, Recipe Manager Plus can integrate with Wonderware's system platform. But if you don't have system platform, it can run standalone and connect to OPC UA data servers. So even if you had no other Wonderware software in your plant, this recipe system can still work for you. Now, if you do have Wonderware system platform, there's one amazing point that you should know. As long as you have a recent version of the software, you can call us here at InSource and we should be able to get you a free license of Recipe Manager Plus so that you can install it and use it from 2 different clients. So if you're interested in trying this, get in contact with us. With that said, my name is Dylan Pereira, and I hope you enjoyed this video from InSource Solutions. If you have any questions or are interested in trying Recipe Manager Plus, please get in touch with us here at InSource. We would love to hear from you.